This will be the final episode in this series. I decided to add one more just to show you where this can lead and to show you, just to give you ideas on how to start practicing these kind of things. I'll be creating courses and way more in-depth versions of this kind of stuff here pretty soon because it was asked for, and also it helps me when I do so. So let's just talk about something for a second. But before we do, go back and watch the previous episodes because we're using moves that we did in those episodes, except we're doing something different now. I'm just going to improvise. This is one of a melody that I do have here, but I'm going to just wander around for a little bit with basic triads. So sorry, this is just an okay improvisation, but something like that was kind of like the answer to the Wagner-esque kind of continuous wandering with chromatic harmony. Like this is actually my own too, but I'm just using something I have memorized. That's my own work. It's actually a symphonic work, but they're both forms of tonal obscurity. Now I finally have a sense of resolution there. So we're going to use simpler forms of tonal obscurity. Okay, you couldn't tell where the tonal center is there. So if I do this, okay, start with a parallel minor chord and move towards the destination chord. I'll use that my same motif. This is a little bit of tonal obscurity. You're not quite sure, is it F Lydian or is it some kind of form of modulation to A? But if you keep repeating it, what would you call it? Let me do something else. And then reworked back to the A. I'm actually kind of reverse engineering everything we've talked about in this series, but I'm starting on a parallel minor chord, F, destination chord, A, E minor, C, G, D, destination chord. It gives you that sense of tonal obscurity. This is a big Ralph Vaughan Williams trick if you're into his music, but you can use it to do something like this. Repeat. So we're in C Lydian. It's obscure at that point because there's chords not in C Lydian. It's a very obscure sequence, especially if you keep repeating it. So I'm reverse engineering C, D, A as my target destination note. Parallel minor chords. F major, C, G, D. Then repeating. So I'm just playing the bass chords. But what you're doing by doing these things is you're leaving the listener kind of in the dark of where's my tonal center. It doesn't really have a definable, it's obscured. So it leads to all kinds of things like this. By reverse engineering parallel minor chords, I could get these modulations like this. That I will still consider chromatic harmony, but we're thinking about stuff in a different way. We could do something like this, okay. So I'm reverse engineering my way to get back to the C chord with borrowed chords. Do it in G. I could do something like this. It leads you in all kinds of directions that are not in that functional harmony kind of sound. So back to the original key, F major 7th, E minor 7th, A, D minor 7th, G, A. That's the sequence. F major 7th, E minor 7th, A, D minor, G, C, F minor, just to throw in a wrench, C, B minor, E, just so I can get back to A. If I wanted to continue something in A. Not necessarily in the key of A, but maybe a mode in A. So You could actually turn that into a loop. Just the first part of it. You notice these progressions are very pleasant, but this is the way I'm looking at it. I'm reverse engineering the parallel minor chords, F major 7th, E minor 7th, A. Okay? And I'm always choosing that A as my destination chord. D minor 7th, G dominant 7th, A. Okay? F major 7th, repeat. E minor 7th, A. D minor 7th, G, E. So look at this as a form of reverse engineering. Instead of starting on a tonic and then using the parallel minor borrowed chord, start on a parallel minor chord and go towards the tonic. And this could lead you to all kinds of chord sequences that you normally would not think of, regardless what style you do. Looping it like this produces a little bit of obscurity. It doesn't quite have that A major center, but you're using it as a destination point, which helps you give you these tonally obscure sequences. It's really hard to tell the tonic area. It's really hard because you're not starting there. For one, you're starting in parallel minor borrowed chords. So leaving the listener in a continuous state of suspension and wanting more. It could lead you in all kinds of harmonic directions. Using the same kind of techniques. Okay. Go back to the original. So now, to me, this is the easiest way to understand this process of creating chord sequences like this, like the Ralph Vaughan Williams, and a lot of film score guys used to do this a lot. They seem to be kind of minimalizing and not doing stuff as much like this, but it's still a very handy tool if you want to do some tonal obscurity like this. And if you think of it no differently as the kind of the answer to the Wagner era period, where they were using these really stretching the limits of tonality with the functional harmony kind of moves. This is kind of like in the same realm, except now people like Ralph Vaughan Williams started to stretch the tonality with modality, and also doing stuff like what I refer to as just reverse engineering their way towards a destination chord from parallel minor chords. And technically you can refer to this as a form of chromatic harmony. I hope to have a course on this pretty soon. That's what I was working towards after my chromatic harmony course. I'm working towards a more in-depth, way more than I do on my channel. I just kind of give you general ideas. So here's my advice. Start something with a parallel minor chord and try to work your way towards that destination chord of the A chord from this list of chords here that are parallel minor. And if you're into rock and pop and everything, try to find a way to loop it, and it's going to create a kind of yearning sequence that never feels like it ends. And this is a good way to drag a listener in, is by never giving them a completion, never giving them finality, kind of like Wagner did. So if you also want to get into like dramatic kind of composing, like media composing and whatnot, I see a lot less of this kind of stuff, but still, you can still use it if you want. Because this obscurity creates a form of prolongation, you don't have a really strong sense of finality. And so you save that really strong cadence for the end and use this kind of obscurity for the rest of it until you hit that high point. So I chose to stick this at the end of the playlist here, just as something to look forward to that you can actually do. You can actually reverse engineer your way towards a destination chord like that. And that's the way I personally prefer to see these things, because it makes you think harmonically differently, and it also has tons of applications, like the ability to create a different form of endless modulation that sounds totally different from the Wagner-esque kind of modulation.